Starting in hello everybody, we'll be starting in a couple of minutes. Just waiting for everybody to join in and get admitted to the room, and then we'll commence. Thank you. Yeah, I think we'll start. Assalamu alaikum and good day, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Thumbs up. Thank you. Yeah. So welcome to this today's webinar. It's been organized by the Chain Store Association of Pakistan and Terrorbiz. And my name is Asfandyar Farrukh. I'm the Managing Director of Urban Brands and the co-founder of the Chain Store Association of Pakistan, also known as CAP. So today's format is that we'll shortly be kicking off a keynote address by our special guest, David Macadam. He's the CEO of the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers and Retailers, followed by a panel discussion with David and our special guests, Faisal Nadeem, Director of Dolmen Group. Just some house rules. All participants are kindly requested to keep their mics off and to use the chat box only. Post any questions or comments. We'll try to include the questions at the end in the panel discussion, along with the questions we already have received in advance. So just before we get started, I'd just like to tell you a bit about the Chain Store Association of Pakistan. From humble beginnings, it's a small community of a few dozen retailers. Over the past 7 years, CAP has transformed into the official trade body for organized retail in the country, with a membership of over 200 brands, primarily SMEs and, of course, large enterprises as well. So CAP's mission is to uplift the retail ecosystem in Pakistan through continuous collaboration between all stakeholders, whether that's retailers, shopping malls, business chambers, other trade bodies, governmental institutions, and regulators, of course, a multitude of suppliers and enablers across the value chain, as well as the academia. So one of the most significant initiatives of CAP has been our annual retail conference, known as the Future of Retail Business Summit and Expo, as well as the retail show, which we organize in collaboration with Terrorbiz, who have helped us organize today's webinar. So after 3 successful editions in Karachi and Lahore, we'll be having the 4th event in Lahore in October of this year. And in a very short span of time, the Future of Retail Conference has become a well-established forum for continuous learning and collaborative endeavors, where all the stakeholders from across the retail industry converge to absorb invaluable insights from international experts and, of course, local trailblazers on many, many topics. And we have an accompanying expo as well, which provides a one-of-a-kind platform for innovators and enablers to showcase their latest offerings and forge deep relationships with all the attendees, especially retailers. So it's an event for retailers, by retailers, and of course, kicking everybody along with us because it's retail, as you know, is a massive ecosystem. And I'm sure we'll also delve into that in today's talk. So moving on to today's webinar, the topic we have for you today is, as you may have read already, emerging trends in retail and shopping malls. And here to speak with us on this great topic, we have David Macadam. Just a quick introduction on David, and then we'll go over to him. He's a globally renowned expert with 35 years of experience in the retail industry. David brings an unrivaled understanding of global real estate, portfolio management, and retail business development. He's the CEO of the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers and Retailers, the MECS and R, which is the voice of the shopping center and retail industry in the Middle East and North Africa region. And also will be joining us for the panel discussion will be Faisal Nadeem. So Faisal is the director of Dolmen Group, and he has extensive experience in the retail industry of Pakistan. He's managing Dolmen's impressive portfolio of international standard shopping malls in Pakistan, and with an exciting mega project opening in Lahore very, very soon. So hello, David. Thank you for taking our time today.
Asfan, thank you very much. And it was a very lovely introduction. I appreciate it very much. And thank you for inviting me to be part of the emerging trends in retail and shopping centers, shopping malls. I guess I'm going to have to update my bio that I send out now, because I'm understanding now that it's 42 years and not the 35. Time flies when you're having fun, though, as you know. So it's all been a joy, and it's gone by very quickly. So yes, I'm David Macadam. I'm the CEO of the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers and Retailers. I'm here today to speak to you and the people on the webinar about what are the emerging trends in retail today. And I'm going to divide my discussion into two parts. And the first one is people generally from time to time ask me, what are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned in the industry over the 42 odd years you've been in it globally? And then the second part is going to be a discussion about a press release that came out on January the 9th this year, 2024, from Alex Partners, who are an internationally renowned global consulting firm. But let me begin first by talking briefly about the question about what people have asked me from time to time. The biggest part of what I've learned over the 42 years in this business and other years in other businesses is that it's all about the relationships that you can create on your way through. And when I say, what are those relationships? What do they mean? I can say that whatever it is that you're doing, you have to ensure that people understand what it is you're trying to say to them, what it is that's important for you to understand, that they get the message. And the other part of it is the persistence that you need to have to get that message across. So it's all about, therefore, building relationships, having the courage to build those relationships, having transparency in everything that you are doing, and having the persistence that you need to succeed in your objectives. I think one of the other things that I think has been key to me, but it's also very important for, I think, many of the other people that I've chatted with, and that is I'm continually, even in my stage of my career, continually upskilling, doing what I'm doing. I'm learning more. I'm finding out more about what's going on in the industry, what's worked, not just where we are, but wherever you are in the world, to find out if there's anything that you can use in your community that you can provide to create something that's going to be better for the industry or better for what you're trying to do going forward. So those are some of the main key points about what I respond to people when they say, what are the valuable lessons? It's all about relationships. It's all about when you say something, you actually deliver on the timing, and you deliver with whatever it is that people have asked you about to deliver on. So it's an important part, I think, of life to make sure that you don't let people down. You don't overpromise and underdeliver. I would prefer to underpromise and overdeliver at every event that I can. Okay, so that's the questions about me that I'm usually asked. Just as a history for me, I ran my own business in Vancouver in Canada for 25 years. 2004, I came to Dubai. I started working with Omar and Abdullah Al Futtaim and Festival City. I ended up running not only the retail, which was about 1.5 million square feet at the time, but also about 350 residential units and about 2 hotels that were involved in a big way there as well. So I ended up doing a fair amount, plus there's an office of about 500,000 feet. So it was very much a mixed use project. So that was the first part of my career in Dubai. Later going on to becoming executive VP of leasing for Emaar, opening up Dubai Mall and other malls at the time, Dubai Marina Mall, and a number of other shopping centers that Emaar had under process at that time that included others in the GCC area. After that, I went to Jones Lang LaSalle, headed up Jones Lang LaSalle in the retail for a number of years, 3.5, 4 years. And then after that, took on the role of being the CEO of the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers and Retailers since 2013, and have done that, and now it's 2024, so it's past 11 years. The second part of my discussion is to discuss the press release that I've mentioned earlier that came out on January the 9th, 2024 by Alex Partners. So I don't know if you've heard of Alex Partners in the past. They're a global international consulting firm. They have offices all around the world. They're headquartered in New York. They are probably one of the more important firms that are identified when there's a bankruptcy or a big challenge that's associated with that business. They come in and their consultants and advisory roles basically help steer you through what's going on and get you into sort of a better position. They are very well known for what's called the Alex Partners Disruption Index. And I think that's part of what I wanted to talk about today, because every year, 3,000 CEOs and senior executives from around the world are targeted, canvassed by the Alex Partners, and they assume or put all of this information together and try and share that information with their global audience about what's going on. I find this very interesting, and it's part of, as I was saying, upskilling and keeping myself current on what's going on in the market. The first thing that they come around and say is that this is a pretty startling fact, but it says that 60% of the respondents, so 60% of the 3,000 CEOs that they basically canvassed and had discussions with, 60% of these people are worried about losing their job to disruption in the coming 12 months. So if you think about it, 6 out of 10 CEOs globally are worried about being out of business, out of a job in the next year, given all of the issues going on globally. So they go on to talk about the new age of disruptions. And what does that mean, and what are we talking about? Well, they're talking about a lot of geopolitical events, and this is even, it came out in January of 2024, and things have become even more interesting geopolitically with respect to the wars, certainly in Gaza and also in Ukraine. It's also, there's increased friction, as we know, with China, Iran, Russia, the shipping in the Red Sea. All of these geopolitical things are fairly significant for many, many of the CEOs, largely Western-based people. So these aren't the CEOs that I'm looking at from this region and further east. This is more about what's going on as the West sees it. They are also very concerned about the outcome of the presidential election. So that's the US-based consideration. But their biggest consideration, when you add all of these things together, and their biggest consideration is generative AI and the biggest disruptive opportunity. How can you keep up with that? How can you keep up with generative AI? And what's the speed of the technological change? What are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to address it? So 1 in 3 CEOs have identified AI as the biggest disruptor in 2024. Many of these CEOs do not have a strategy in place as to how to adopt this technology. So when I was asked for this event to talk about really what's going on as emerging trends in retail and shopping malls, shopping centers, clearly generative AI and how you can capture what's going on, how you can have the right team put together to be able to manage these specifically with generative AI, and how to fulfill whatever it is you can do with this. So let's talk a little bit first about what is generative AI. Generative AI is one of the more popular, I guess, of the generative AI is the Chat GPT. And that is an ability to create content, create audio, create video, create code, images, text, simulations. So all of this is a great application for retail overall, not only for the retailers, but also for the shopping center owners. And I think it's a really important consideration for all of us in this region and from the region in Pakistan to make sure that you don't overlook any of the opportunities that are available with respect to generative AI. But then how do you do that? And what do you do? Because It's new technology. A lot of it hasn't really come to play yet. It's still in its formative ways in many respects. But I think more importantly, it takes part of your corporate strategy to make sure that whatever you're doing, generative AI is part of your corporate strategy in how you're going to adopt what's going on with this, the whole thing. I think that when you're looking at different teams and looking at what's happened, it's hard to find anyone today in the job market who is the generative AI expert. I mean, I've used generative AI, I've used ChatGPT, I've used a lot of these different things, and GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformation. So there's not a lot of people that you can hire immediately to do that. But one of the things that AlixPartners states that's most important for all of us to start thinking about right away is to make sure that you have the right team in place who are not afraid of the technology, but who embrace it. And I think that that's really an important aspect to look at. How important is it? Well, AlixPartners and also McKinsey, which is another great consulting firm, have both come up with a number that's estimated to be about a $4.4 trillion addition, $4.4 trillion addition to the global economy annually. So how can you become part of that? What do you need to do to be part of that new equation? And I know that wherever you are, whether you're in Saudi or whether you're in New York, wherever you are, people are now trying to figure out how to get their hands around whatever it means to have this great opportunity to work with these generative AI models. So I think that for all of us, when you're looking at shopping centers, you're looking at from the old times in the days before, you'd look at managing property management, you look at facility management, you'd look at all of the different ways of leasing, putting things together. I think all of this now you need to overlay another area that's going to be very important, which is about how to make your business more sophisticated. So you have to be able to upskill while you're moving along quickly with doing your business day to day. But you also have to think about how you are going to manage adopting this technology and going forward with it. So as I say, when you look at it, and 60% of the global CEOs feel that they're going to get left out of it, and they're going to be at risk of losing their job because they haven't been able to grasp the ability to utilize this generative AI, I think that it becomes part and parcel of what our expectations are to use that. Now, I did send along to my colleague in the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers and Retailers a package of information that came most recently from Paris, from the retail summit that just occurred there last week. And what I can do, if anyone is interested, there are probably 6 major things that we all can do and address as business operators to try and encompass and grasp onto what can be done with generative AI. And I know that I will have Carrie send this off to you, to the Terra people, whoever it is, so that you can have a look at that. It's not copyright. What it is, it came out through a press release, so that it's in the open market. But it has some very good information about how you can utilize this business going forward. When I'm looking at what we're talking about now, I think there's a couple of other thoughts that come forward. And that is that people also are concerned about inflation and the dollar inflation that's going on, and how you can control your business given the inflation. And I know that if you look at the different people, even on this call today, I think Faisal with his construction, what's going on, there's, I'm sure, a tremendous amount of inflation in the construction costs. So how do you manage that? What do you have to do to be able to bridge that gap? And how do you deal with interest rates that look like they're going to be remaining pretty high for a while? How do you manage training and managing Gen Z, Gen X people? What do you do with that? Because they're the youngest cohort coming into the market. So there's all kinds of these new challenges coming up. But I can tell you that it's really no different than when 40 odd years ago when I was there. Retail has always been about change. It's been about adapting to that change. And it's been about trying to maximize whatever it is you're trying to achieve using whatever tools are available today. So yes, today has its series of headaches, challenges, geopolitical issues, AI coming into the forefront, environmental issues, government regulations. There are so many different things coming on, and probably the speed of all of this is much faster than it was in 40 years ago when I was in the starting off of my career, but they're all manageable. And I think what's important for everyone in this call to understand is you should not become overwhelmed. Even if 60% of the CEOs are replaced, there's still 40% that are carrying on. And for those 60 CEOs that were replaced, there's a great deal of opportunity available for the rest of you, the rest of us, to take over those roles and become useful for whatever it is you need to do in the retail industry going forward. So the only thing I can say is how to manage all of these factors. And I would say act quickly, act decisively, and at the same time, execute brilliantly all of the factors that you have under your control right now. Unlock the force multipliers provided by AI, but by and large, carry on, have persistence, have courage, transparency, build those relationships. And I think with that, that's about where I wanted to leave it for now. And I'm more than happy to have conversations with other people, answering questions. But if that's a good start, Asfan, if there's anything else you'd like to speak about, we can do it. Otherwise, I throw the ball back to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, David. It's been very, I think, enlightening for us to sort of understand from a global and regional perspective what's going on, because often sort of Pakistan is sort of, we are looking at our local sort of environment rather than the sort of global and regional aspects. So I think one thing that I think you definitely touched upon is the disruption that has been happening. And I think there is disruption, I would say maybe disruption of what generative AI is sort of bringing to the table, especially on a global perspective, Pakistan as well. Then, of course, e-commerce, I think, has also changed the landscape. Even in Pakistan, e-commerce is growing very fast. And then, of course, along with that comes sort of the omni-channel. And of course, inflation, as you rightly put it, that's a big concern for everybody. So I'd like to sort of bring in Faisal as well here. Faisal, I'll just, yeah, if you could also turn your mic on. So I think my first question would sort of, I'd like to take a step back, considering sort of your experience, of course, in the Middle East and shopping centers and retail. And I'd like Faisal also to share his input as well. But the question I think would be, we've seen over the last, I think, 30 years or so, 20 to 30 years, retail and shopping malls really mushroom and blossom in the Middle East, right? Compared to, and evolve very quickly compared to the other developed markets, the more traditional markets, such as in the West. So just wanted to sort of understand, and this is something I think is important, is in Pakistan, we're also looking to grow and to evolve and leapfrog ahead as quickly as we can, of course, keeping in mind economic considerations. So what would you maybe say were the pillars behind this rapid growth of shopping malls and retail in the Middle East? So something that would be helpful from an insightful perspective.
Faisal, do you want to start off on that one?
I think it's Middle East, so better you can have your input and then I'll just add
Okay, sure. Let me start then. Okay. I think when you look at the Middle East, Asfan, I think it's really important to look back at the strategy, the corporate, the company strategy that was introduced in the early 2000s. And that was retail and Emirates Airlines and tourism was 40% of the GDP of Dubai. So if you consider the importance of retail, you consider the importance of tourism, you consider the importance of the Emirates airline and growing that and making that a regional hub and making the tourists easy to come and go. That was the premise in Dubai in the late 90s, but certainly in the early 2000s. That was when things really sort of got going. So there was a tremendous amount of investment and effort put onto the Dubai marketplace to capitalize on that huge GDP lift from all of those three things: retail, Emirates Airline, and also what's going on in the business. I think it's important to understand in a place like Pakistan that maybe it doesn't have all of those same elements that made Dubai as successful as quickly. So to put it into context, the retail in Dubai, 40% of the retail sales on an average year. So there are better years and there are better, worse years, not as good years. But generally speaking, tourism accounts to approximately 40% of the spend. Tourism accounts to 40% of the retail spend. So that is a big component of the investment that the tourists make to the retail industry. So that's why one of the reasons why the shopping center business grew. The other reason is because a lot of these shopping centers were anchored by mixed-use developments. If you look at something like Mall of Emirates, which I think many of us are familiar with, or Dubai Mall, or some of the other shopping centers, they're basically anchored with a shopping center. Yes, I get that. But they're also anchored with usually over two 4-star, 5-star fabulous hotels that are linked to it. And if you looked at the Kempinski Hotel in Mall of the Emirates, it had always an occupancy level over 90%. So how many hotels do you know have an occupancy level throughout the year over 90%? The Kempinski did that in Mall of the Emirates. That's a ready-made success formula by itself. Then you've got the area immediately around Mall of the Emirates. It's full of a lot of residential people, so they can come and go. If you look at the other part about Mall of Emirates, we're just talking about Mall of Emirates, but it holds true for many of the shopping centers in Dubai. Majid Al Futtaim, when he saw the site or knew that he was going to build Mall of Emirates there, he actually invested $100 million for the flyovers off Sheikh Zayed Road. So how many shopping center developers first have the capital, have the vision, have the idea that, of course, you're going to have a lot of cars in and out. You're going to have the parking work properly. You're going to have easy access off of Sheikh Zayed Road. Same goes for Dubai Mall, of course. Emaar is very much engaged with the Dubai government, making sure that the flyovers around Dubai Mall are equally as successful. But Majid Al Futtaim actually invested that much money only for the flyovers. That's the kind of engagement that I think created this kind of momentum. I think one of the other things that happened with Mall of Emirates that isn't really well understood is that within 3 years, Mall of Emirates was entirely paid for with no debt. So when people heard the fact that in 3 years you paid for an entire shopping center like Mall of the Emirates and got rid of all of the other costs that were associated, like the Ski Dubai, like everything else that's attached to it, 3 years, all that debt was retired, and the rest of it has just been a pretty nice money-making machine. So when people heard about that kind of success, everyone thought, well, it's pretty easy. All I have to do is build a shopping center. And that's where things started to maybe not work as well as they had for Majid Al Futtaim. And he's very much was a brilliant businessman and a visionary, and not everyone is like that. And many, many shopping centers in Dubai have tried, but haven't succeeded in the same success level that Majid Al Futtaim has succeeded with. Does that answer your question, Asfan?
It does, absolutely. It's good to know. I think the background is very interesting. Faisal, do you have sort of anything to add on sort of your looking from a Pakistani retail perspective, or what the Middle East has done right, and sort of what we are doing perhaps in Pakistan and what we can sort of leverage? Fair enough, we don't have tourism. I mean, international tourism, that's a big sort of gap, but generally, sort of how do you look at it from a local context as well as what have the learnings been that can be applied to Pakistan?
Okay. I think firstly, it's a little bit unfair to compare Dubai to Pakistan because it's a very, very different market. Dubai
Yes,
is a
agreed.
one-of-a-kind anomaly in the world. There aren't a lot of Dubais around, so it's difficult to try to say we want to, plan the way they've done things. It's a unique way of governance. It's a unique way of planning. It's all been done in a certain way. So I think it's more fair to compare Pakistan to any developing country who have been more successful in retail and how they have evolved over time. So we always look at Dubai for inspiration, but then for examples, we have to look at other countries, such as India, which is a very big, country, but similar sort of culture and environment, and then other countries in the region like Philippines and all those other places. Uh, but what we can learn from Dubai is that what they've done well is put in the focus. So what tends to happen here is that we tend to there's a movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once. So when we read something new, when we see something new, when we see someone doing something new, for some reason we stop what we're doing and try to do what the other person is doing, thinking that this looks very nice. Why? How hard can it be? Let's try and do the same thing, or let's try to do something else. I'm doing this retail business, but this real estate part looks good, or this real estate business retail part looks good, or is generally trying to without putting in the effort or thought process, just moving our focus. So I think the good thing in Dubai is that they have that focus, whether it's from the business, whether it is from the government, it is to they knew what they wanted to do, uh, and they stuck to it during the good times and the bad times. And I think that's the most important lesson we can take, is that the vision should be there and we should be ready to navigate through different sort of challenges that go through, rather than trying to lose focus and trying to do something else altogether.
I would actually second that. I think a very valid point that I think the key point here is continuity and consistency, right? We have to have a vision and we have to, through the ups and downs, just make sure that we're sticking to that vision and executing and maneuvering and navigating. But consistency, I think, is really needed, of course, on a larger economic level, but within the retail sector as well, of how we can be consistent and try to achieve certain goals, maybe eventually, I think we can start hitting those milestones. So, David, sort of switching to you on the similar topic. I mean, you got a sort of global and regional perspective. So, how do you see the Pakistani market and the sort of retail sector? I'm sure you've maybe sort of have some thoughts on it.
Sure.
So, I
Yes.
mean, especially in terms of sort of what you think is the potential and also what needs to be done, other than this, of course, underlying principle that we need to be consistent and have a good vision and keep at it.
Well, I've been fortunate in the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers and Retailers that we have a number of great supporters in Pakistan from many of the shopping centers that are there. And Faisal, of course, with his work, what he's been doing as well, he understands what it is we can do. So our members, in fact, we even have one of our board members, Saad is with us from Lucky One Malls, is a board member for the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers and Retailers. We appreciate the kind of support that we get from Pakistan. So what have I learned? What have I seen? What have I heard? My sense of everything regarding Pakistan is that it's in its infancy in many ways, but it's also sophisticated in many ways too. So it's not startup, it's coming a long ways already, and that many of the best business practices have already been adopted. And I would suggest that as long as what you're working with in terms of your design, in terms of putting things together, you have made the right choices in terms of access public roads, made sure you do your demographic research and your psychographics, making sure that where you are, you can draw a marketing circle around your shopping center and understand who your shopper is going to be. As long as you get the basics right in Pakistan, what I've seen is you have that already. You've done it. The successful shopping centers have already done that. And I think that keeping the basics in line and making sure that you are paying attention to the details, the devil's in the details, I think, as you always know, but it has to be one step at a time, moving it along, but attracting and doing and adopting those things that are working globally and bringing it into the Pakistan market. And I think that's the best way forward.
Right. Great. So taking this along, I mean, considering the current economic sort of challenges, I think in Pakistan and in general, sort of what, I mean, we had a question come in, and I had this one earlier as well, is sort of any sort of strategies that you could recommend in terms of for retailers and shopping malls in Pakistan to sort of overcome these challenges and to achieve success, over the short to medium to long term.
You want me to answer
First,
that one
maybe
first, Faisal? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. Sorry, is it David first or me?
Faisal, you go first then
Okay.
David, please.
Okay. I think the way we see challenges, particularly inflation and cost, we have to change our mindset to where initially it was just cost-based. The whole mindset that, we're a country with cheaper resources and cheaper way of doing things, and just try to do everything in a more, cost-effective way. I think with generally the inflation and particularly the energy cost and the cost of doing business going up, I think the focus more has to now go towards building margin rather than just trying to do a lot of things at a less cost. I feel that a lot of retailers, because they've come from a manufacturing mindset, the idea is always scale. The idea is always to have more shops, to have more stock, to get price competitive in that area, rather than trying to having more productive stores. Whenever we talk to someone, the first metric they talk about is, of course, the number of stores that they're planning to open that year. Whereas like for like sales or just the volume of sales per store or the margin per store is it's always the last topic of discussion, because I think it's more fun more exciting to talk about, I'm opening up there, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. We're a large country, a large population, but I think that a retailing mindset of having more productive stores and to build a better sort of profitability, because if you look at the rentals, if you look at the fit out cost and utility cost, eventually they'll get up to a much higher level. And if you're not able to build that margin or find ways of innovating to reduce costs in terms of developing better or lower priced fit outs, or innovating on our supply chain, end of the day, things are in one way or the other connected to the dollar. One or two things might not be, everything else is. So you have to become like a globally competitive brand. You have to focus on, giving better productivity, and to focusing on the resources that are available. Because if you scale up, you need everything. It's not just the money. It's not just the stock. You also need to find those manpower, and it takes time to train that. It is costly. With higher inflation rates, with higher energy costs, I've talked to a few retailers who've now said that, actually rental is no longer a problem. My energy cost is higher than my rental cost, so what do I do then? So my reply to them would be, you have to focus on a limited number of stores, and focus on like for like sales rather than just trying to achieve that manufacturing scale that we keep talking about.
Right. Very, very valid, interesting points. I think it's very important. David, would you like to add anything, any advice for businesses?
Yeah, sure. Faisal, I 100% agree with what you're saying. It's way more exciting to talk about opening another 10 stores than it is to try and make one profitable. But I think, as we all know in the industry, one bad shop takes 7 well-operated shops to support. So if you have one bad one, you need 7 good ones to keep that other one going. And I think that is probably the less glamorous discussion point. And I would suggest you're right on the money with what you've said, Faisal. I would also say to the retailers, you need more sophistication in the business. And I would say that not only to the Pakistani retailers, I would say that to any retailer globally, because you do need to be more sophisticated in terms of understanding what's selling, what you need to be in your supply chain, to make sure your logistics are in order, making sure everything is the right design, the right size, the right fit, the right price. It's very complicated business, and it's not for the faint of heart. The only other thing I would suggest is, besides saying it's try to be more sophisticated in how you're looking at it, I would say this is it's very expensive business. And my experience over 42 years has been that most retailers are pure optimists, and I would suggest that certainly in the business for a long time, I have seen a lot of that for myself as well, but there's a reality to it as well. And I would say that if you're undercapitalized and you're trying to do this business, I'd say it's very, very challenging, and I'd say almost good luck, because you need deep pockets to be able to succeed in the retail business.
Right. That's very true. I think in Pakistan, we're seeing that more and more, that you definitely need deep pockets in order to, manage things in the current environment, especially as challenges increase, you need to be able to withstand them. So I think it's important to be stay efficient and not sort of, chase the bright lights of opening new stores or going into every market. I think we've also seen, interestingly, in Pakistan, that we did have a lot of brands that were riding the wave in the last few years, and before that, sort of opening a lot of stores, opening in places where without maybe doing due diligence in terms of the neighborhood, the captive market, the shopping center itself as well. So we've seen actually a pullback, and I think that's always a good thing. And I think COVID perhaps also played a role in that. So sort of taking a lead from there, so COVID also saw the rapid growth of e-commerce, right? And I think that's also been in Pakistan, but as well as in the Middle East. So how do you see sort of the e-commerce growth affecting or physical retail and shopping malls, and maybe how have you seen retailers and shopping malls adapt and moving forward? Sort of what does it look like in your opinion? David, this one's for you first.
Okay. As I said, I'm a student of the retail business, and I'm always interested in what's going on. And it was about a month and a half, 2 months ago, I was in an airport. I was actually reading a physical newspaper. Believe it or not, they still have those. It was a Financial Times newspaper. But the feature article in the UK was that a number of the prominent online trading firms that had done so well in apparel during the pandemic, they were actually going into receivership, meaning that they couldn't make it work anymore. You need to have a certain critical mass, and you got to keep that going. I'm talking about for the online sales. The issue that was going on that during the pandemic, it didn't matter as much, although it mattered, but it didn't matter as much. And that is that of all of the sales that an online retailer will make, between 40 and as high as 60% of those sales are actually returned back to the company that originally did it. And that was a very, very difficult financial issue for so many of these online trading houses. Those kinds of issues reduced the amount of reduction in the overall sales from online business was going on. People generally are social animals, and they enjoy going into a social setting like a shopping center or the high streets and buying and getting to know their shop people. So the whole idea about online, in the UK anyway, I'm suggesting, has been very difficult, and many have bounced in and out or are headed towards bankruptcy. Even if you look at, and I'm not saying that Amazon is headed anywhere near there, I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that Amazon's overall profit margin from their core business, which is the retail sales, is somewhere less than 5%. And it's hard to make a business with a 5% margin work. And when you have scale, like Amazon clearly does, then they're okay. But a lot of the other businesses don't have that kind of scale, and their margins, of course, have eroded dramatically when people are going back to the shops for the reality for the basically the experience of going out and buying something.
Right. I think we've seen that in Pakistan as well. But I think we're also way behind in terms of online adoption. but those challenges definitely are there. So we do have a few more questions. Do we have? Are you available for another 5 to 10 minutes, David? Or
Sure. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
and Faisal, you as well. I hope we can
Yeah,
take a few
sure.
more questions. Yeah. So another sort of question we had was, how can, I mean, I guess we're talking about physical retail. In your opinion, especially from a regional perspective, what would be some ways brands can, I guess, improve their footfall? Malls as well as brands can improve their footfall of customers. And what have you seen maybe best practices in this regard? Faisal, maybe you first, please.
Okay.
Start with you.
I think the question should be little bit rephrased. So when we started, especially in Pakistan, the idea was always more footfall, more footfall. And I think over time we realized the idea is not more; it's always the quality of footfall. So it's not difficult to get in a lot of people in the mall. It's it's free entertainment. It's a good place, good parking, good facilities. It's a rare feat compared to what's available generally in the market. I think the idea should be how to get more quality footfall into the malls, and that comes from you have to identify your customer, and then you have to identify why they're coming to your particular mall, and then how you can get them to either increase their visits or spend more per visit. As a customer, you always prefer to be when it's not full, because you prefer to have the comfort of moving around, of shopping, of getting a better experience, as compared to a very crowded place where no one is listening to you, or you don't have space to move. So as a customer, you like to be in that semi-empty place, and the ideal place is where you have less customers. Everyone is buying more, everyone is enjoying more, and they're coming back more. So it's not just footfall; it's the experience you give to them, and then getting in the right people into your doors as much as possible.
Right. And I think just to add to that, I think the same applies for retailers. I mean, we always want more and more customers, but how many can we handle, at one time? And secondly, yeah, I mean, we've seen that over the Eid season as well. It's very tough to sort of manage those crowds. But then how productive are the customers you're bringing in? And then the other sort of thing we've seen in the past, I think, has always been discounting, trying to bring in customers and drive sales through discounting. But that's a very short-term sort of measure, and that really isn't sort of build that loyalty with the customer base. David, would you like to add anything at all on this point?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think what I'm hearing is both the shopping centers owners and the retailers, you need to adopt more sophistication in the business. And when I say that, I think that everybody needs to jump into more of this technology to really help you to figure out how to make more sales, how to make this whole thing work. You're wanting to have, of all of the shoppers that come in, you're wanting to have high levels of conversion. And that's an important part. You're wanting to have increased dwell time, and that's an important part. You're wanting to do a lot of different things that are sort of non-apparel related. So you need to have more F&B. So the rule of thumb is every 70 meters in a shopping environment, retail environment, you need to have some kind of an F&B operation where people can actually sit down. For if it's men, they can sit and watch the traffic, or if it's women, they can sit and have a cup of tea or coffee, whatever it is they want as well. But all of these things, you need more sophistication, and a lot of it is IT driven, and I think a lot of it will become AI driven in the coming year.
Absolutely. Just going to our last question. I know we still have many, but I think we won't be able to take all of them. So just sort of a last one is the sort of theme I'd like to touch is sort of human capital and people. I think retail is a very people business, right? And I think what we've seen in Pakistan and in general, I think is the sort of the development and the training of the right people for the right jobs, especially whether it's the front customer facing side or the back office functions. So I wanted to sort of get your opinion on sort of how can retailers and shopping malls sort of try to boost that availability of good people, and what is the role of sort of trainings and educational institutes and something maybe from a Middle East sort of perspective that you find that has been helpful in ensuring that the right people, you have the right sort of pool and pipeline of people to manage retail and shopping centers. David, love to hear your thoughts.
Even before we had this call today, Faisal and I were talking about 2014, I believe, when he was taking the GVS education program that we were offering in Dubai. And I think that, as he was saying, it's not only just the information you're learning and the current best practice, but it's also the relationships you're building in that classroom with people who are of a similar nature to you and what you're doing, and the problems, challenges you're facing are pretty much similar to whatever it is that you have, they have, and you can share, and you get that information as part of it. Is it important? I think it's vital. And I've spent my life trying to educate different people in the retail industry, whether it's a shopping center, whether it's the retailer side. I've done my fair share of mentoring work, which I love, and enjoy basically training people to be able to be better at what they do, but also to enjoy it. Which gets me back to the other thing, that if you don't love it, you can't do it. So if you want to get into anything, whatever it is, make sure that you love it, first of all, so that you can really embrace it and get the most out of it.
Definitely. I think it sometimes, at least in Pakistan, we feel sometimes, only crazy people run retail businesses or are in retail, because it's so fast moving and dynamic and complicated. Absolutely. Yeah. But when it goes well, I think there's nothing like it. Faisal, your thoughts on this theme?
So I think the first part David has covered is that you need those training program facilities and trying to bring people together. I believe they've started a little bit of a small concept as a retail business school. CAP has been a good endorser of it. I need to endorse more of that. I also think because there is less top level knowledge available, a lot of the personal involvement by the retailers themselves into their staff is very important. It's very easy to say, okay, we'll hire someone, he'll train them, and then if they do it well, that's good. If they don't do it well, we'll find someone else. But I think it's very important for the staff or the ground people at every level to actually hear the thoughts of the owner, to hear the thoughts of the CEO, and try to understand what they're trying to do, so that they can learn and adapt and eventually grow into those roles. And we see, because of scaling up or because of other issues, we're not able to give people the time, but we expect them to get the same results. So for this industry, I think the crazy people need to pass on their craziness down the line. They need to pass on the love down the line, so they love the business as much as you love the business.
That's a great note. That's a great note to conclude on. So we'll have to stop here. I mean, I think it's been very insightful and incredible. And we have people who are very engaged and wanting to ask questions. And we have, but I think we'll take those for another time. But I'm sure they can also contact you guys on LinkedIn.
I think it's good if they can attend when you do this show, they can have more comprehension on all the questions. So it's a good way to plug that in.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you, Faisal. Good one. Future Retail Conference we'll be having in October. David, we'd love to have you. I'd like to extend an invitation to you. If your schedule allows, please do visit us in Lahore. I'm based in Karachi, but we'll be having it in Lahore. Faisal also, I'm sure, is shuttling between Karachi and Lahore. But I think when I get here, thank you everybody for joining. It's been, I think, a wonderful conversation. And thanks again to our special guests, David Macadam and Faisal Nadeem. Have a great rest of your day. And love us.
Thank you very much, Asfan and Faisal. Thank you. It's a pleasure. And we'll be in touch in the next little while, I'm sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Asfan. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.